Welcome to the Functional and Integrative Medicine Podcast. This podcast is all about exploring root cause medicine, showcasing the power of this approach, and inspiring other MDs and DOs to follow this incredible path. I'm your host, Ginger Allen, and founder of Your Medical Liaison, a medical marketing agency working with MDs and DOs since 2012. My passion for root cause medicine and physician advocacy drives me to help MDs and DOs who have incorporated functional and integrative medicine into their practices. So let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I am excited to introduce Dr. Austin, a deeply thoughtful and passionate physician whose approach to healthcare is rooted in truly understanding the full story behind each patient. With a foundation in both traditional medicine and evidence-based alternative therapies, she blends the best of both worlds to uncover the root cause of illness and support lasting holistic wellness. Dr. Austin's journey into functional and integrative medicine began early, sparked as a teenager by a powerful insights in mental and elemental nutrients by Dr. Carl Pfeiffer. That early fascination with nutrition's impact on brain function and behavior led the groundwork to what would become a lifelong calling. As an honors graduate of Loma Linda School of Medicine and a member of the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society, Dr. Austin also holds a degree in biochemistry and cell biology from UC San Diego, where she graduated magna cum laude. She completed her residency in full spectrum family medicine through UCSF Sutter and was selected as the National Medical Resident Representative for the American College of Advancement in Medicine, ACAM. She also served as a clinical research fellow in the UCSF Department of Dermatology, contributing to research and patient care in psoriasis, eczema, and more under the mentorship of Dr. John Koo. Outside the clinic, Dr. Austin lives what she teaches. She is a passionate athlete and spends her time hiking, swimming, or mountain biking in the Texas Hill Country, fully embodying the lifestyle she encourages her patients to pursue. Her dedication to finding root causes of illness and improving lives is evident in everything she does. I'm so excited to dive into her insights and the holistic approach to healing. Please welcome Dr. Austin to the show. Hi, Doc.
Hi, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Of
So I'm
course.
super excited to have you here. I know we met, I believe, through Dr. Collar, and so you're very involved in the functional and integrative world of medicine, and you're an MD, so that's just really great. And, this show is all about, really bringing to light for other MDs and DOs that are thinking about functional and integrative medicine, doctors like you who are actually using it in practice. So this is fantastic. So if you can, you did share in your bio a little bit about what led you to functional and integrative medicine, but, once you went through med school, like what made you, did you know before you went to med school that you were going to go into functional and integrative? You want to just kind of tell us that story and how it came to be?
Yeah. Well, the interest started as a teenager. I was sick for most of my childhood and I never
Okay.
felt well. So I saw many, many doctors over the years and nobody could give me answers. And so I had to figure it out myself. And that's
Mm.
very motivating.
Yes,
So
it is.
that is why I studied biochemistry, because I wanted to figure out, well, I love science and I wanted to figure out, how the body works and how I could fix it from, the root cause. And this was way before functional medicine existed or was known, now it's more popular, the term.
Right.
Uh, and so even before medical school, I would go to conferences on integrative medicine, like medical
Okay.
conferences. And I wasn't sure if I should be an MD or an ND at the time, because I was also interested in, herbal medicine, nutrition, and looking more at the whole body. And I hadn't had a great experience in standard Western medicine. But at the time, I worked with a doctor in San Diego who kind of convinced me that if I became an MD, I could help change the system, hopefully more than if I was a naturopath at that time. So then I applied to med school and I went to Loma Linda, where they were more open around nutrition. And I started an integrative medicine medical group as well while I was there. So
Okay.
I've been interested in this. I knew I wanted to do what's now called functional medicine or integrative medicine since way before med school.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's
You're
why I chose the residency I went to because they also had an integrative medicine program, and they were supportive of what I wanted to do. So that's really the main reason I went into this specific program,
very
which
cool.
through UCSF up in Santa Rosa.
So you basically done the integrative, you've done the functional, you've done pretty much everything. And I love that you really refer to it as root cause because,
Yeah.
really that's what it is, right? It's root cause medicine.
Yeah.
Um, so, obviously, and so you've been practicing integrative and functional medicine since day one of being a physician.
Mhm.
Wow, that's so cool. I don't know that I've met maybe Dr. Collar because, his dad was, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
one that, wasn't influenced by another physician that kind of went out on your own, which is really, trailblazer for you to do, especially
I
how
mean, it was challenging. I remember in med school, I would try to incorporate, like nutrition and some of the approaches I would use with patients. And I remember some of the doctors that were training, most of them were very nice, but some of them would say, like, don't waste your time or,
oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And how many years have you been practicing?
About 16 years.
Right. So, yeah, 15 years ago, really hardly anybody was doing it then.
Yeah.
Um, so that was, you were really an outlier. Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, can you share, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for many years. Can you share a story with, the MDs and DOs that listen to the podcast about a story who's, one of your patients whose life improved significantly? I know you have thousands, but is there one that kind of sticks out in your mind that you could share with them?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that always sticks in my mind, and it was right after residency. I had a patient who came in and had already purchased her headstone because she was planning to die. And she came in with a packet of like her history that was probably, of course, back then it was all written, right? Like it wasn't on the computer. It was like like this, like
Oh,
a
wow.
information. And I spent a lot of time at that time. It was a little overwhelming, but going through everything and just kind of addressing. She couldn't walk, and she had some sort of unusual neurological condition that nobody could figure out. And so I actually with her, we ended up figuring out kind of approach from Western kind of standard Western medical and also kind of functional, where it turned out she had a Chiari malformation where her spinal cord was partially tethered and the neurologist had missed it. And I don't know how
Okay.
I figured this out. It somehow came to me and we found this surgeon, and that was like a dramatic life change for her. And that's not really functional, but then
Okay.
also had a bunch of other things going on, like she was just chronically ill and her muscles didn't work properly.
Okay.
And it turned out that she had some issues around toxicity with heavy metals and some genetic predisposition towards not being able to detox,
Okay.
mitochondrial dysfunction that we addressed. And in the end, she was a new person. And I would say and she was just unbelievably grateful. And right, so I
She's
would say
probably doing great today.
that was pretty dramatic.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you hear these stories, a lot of the functional and integrative medicine doctors I work with, a lot of their patients have seen so many doctors, like 7, 8, 9 doctors before they get to, my docs, and then, they're able to reverse a lot of this stuff, and it's just amazing, what you guys can do, and
Yeah.
I think, sometimes people don't realize how impactful you guys really
Yeah.
are and how much you really help patients.
Yeah.
Um, so especially since you started, over 15 years ago when nobody was really doing this, I'm sure, this brought challenges to you. I mean, you shared a little bit about the challenges in med school, but when you opened your practice, what challenges did you run into and how did you navigate those?
Well, when I left residency, I joined a practice. I didn't start my own.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I mean, there were definitely challenges. I would say some of the biggest ones were financial, because people, had to pay cash. And that was a hard transition, I would say, coming out of, a system where people show up with their insurance and everything. And then all of a sudden they're paying cash. And I ended up at a clinic where they were seeing end of the road. Like I mentioned, that patient, like the
Yeah.
sickest of the sick. We were next to an airport and people were getting wheeled in. Like seeing like you're like my 20th doctor that I'm seeing. This is
Oh
my
my
last
gosh.
stop kind of situation. And so I would say that was extremely stressful and challenging. Um, so it doesn't have to be that way. That's just what, happened and where I ended up. And it was a great clinic. It was just, that was, yeah, pretty challenging. I think now I'm in a different place and I have a little bit more of the middle of the road. Not everyone is like getting wheeled in extremely
Right.
ill with, yeah. So now it's a little bit more middle of the road and I have my own practice now and I've figured it out. But yeah,
Yes.
that was challenging. Also, just again, financially, like making sure you're making enough money to actually
Right.
continue to work.
Survive. Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, and I tell a lot of when patients tell me, "Oh, well, I don't want to pay cash," and I always say to people, "But you have a deductible. What is your deductible? It's $3,500 a year, $4,000 a year that you're spending.
Right.
Healthcare insurance is not free."
They're not,
Um,
and a lot of it can also be, reimbursed via, out of network coverage.
right.
Um, and so I'm not really running into that problem now, but back then it seemed a challenge. And
Yeah.
also being in a clinic where I think it was just really quite stressful,
Sure.
at that, yeah. So
What do you wish someone had told you before you started practicing this way, or what advice would you give to other MDs or DOs that are thinking about adopting this approach to medicine?
that's a good question. I would say that, well, first off, I think you should definitely get general medicine down first because there are some people who go right into this and you want to take and not throw out all of standard medicine. You want to do a combination. That's
Right.
something I would say.
So if they're already an MD, like let's say,
Yeah,
it's a friend of yours and she's got a primary care practice and she's an MD and she does traditional medicine, but she's like, there's something missing, what advice would you give to her? Like, what would you suggest to her about, how you adopt this approach?
like how she could incorporate into what they're already doing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, one is get educated and get the community and get connections, right? That's
Okay.
very helpful.
Sure.
And then I would start slow, just incorporate one or two things versus
Okay.
thinking to revamp your entire practice. And then I don't really have the answer for this. For me, I'm doing the cash based because I can spend more time with patients. But if you're
Sure.
in kind of standard care, it does get more challenging if you only have 10 to 15 minutes with a patient.
Of
So
course.
at that point, if you're really wanting to get into that and spend more time, you might have to think about either like direct primary care model where people pay monthly. I don't know if you're aware
Mhm.
of direct primary care. At least you can have more time with the patient and then you can incorporate some of those things more easily. Um, or just, cash based practice. I just have found it really hard with insurance in the very short time visit to incorporate this.
Yeah, one of my physicians, which I thought was kind of interesting, she does take insurance, but
Yeah.
what she does is she staggers it over 3 or 4 visits.
Okay.
So
Good.
she's,
Yeah.
and she does, spend a little bit more time. Now she only gets paid for 15 minutes, but she still spends more time, with the patient. So
Yeah.
she, actually blocks, more time.
Yeah.
And, when I asked her, I said, "Well, you're really, you know, taking money out of your pocket in a way, to do that." And her response was, "The joy that I receive from helping patients." She's a functional gynecologist, and she said, "The joy that I receive from helping patients with functional medicine far supersedes any amount of money I could ever make." And so for me, it's worth it to spend that extra time with the patient and just, do more visits. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's a cool approach." So,
Yeah.
there is a way to do it with insurance. Um,
Right. And I
but
did actually, I should mention, I did do it with insurance for a while. I worked in a primary care clinic in Bend, Oregon for
okay.
maybe, I think 3 years.
Okay.
And I did incorporate a lot of these things, and I
Oh,
was
good.
able to, and they were actually supportive of me doing that. It just wasn't to the degree that I wanted to, but it was a great place to kind of like if somebody was starting out, you could definitely do it, right? Like incorporate
Yes.
some extra testing or just talk a little bit more about nutrition and some of the root causes. I don't see why you can't, like you said,
Yes.
the gynecologist said she's doing that.
Yeah, what she's doing is billing whatever she can through insurance, and then if it's like a lot of the testing that you guys do
Mhm.
is not covered by insurance, then she will be transparent with the patient. Like, I would recommend that you get these tests, but it's not covered by insurance, and here's how much it would be. And the
Mhm.
majority of the patients are okay with paying for those extras.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you can also
excellent.
refer out, like, you could have a health coach or nutritionist or someone to help support you,
She
right?
does have that as well in her office. Yes, yeah, that's great. So, what trends? I know there's a lot going on, especially with the mitochondrial health and, red light therapy and EMF and blue light and all this stuff that I'm hearing about. What's exciting for you? Like, what is some of the things that you're like really excited about and you're kind of, it's kind of new and you're starting to
Yeah.
incorporate it?
I mean, there's many things. But I'll mention one that's not necessarily new, but I think it's evolving and I've been doing for years is hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And right, there's just so much more information we need, and that I am always researching around perimenopause, right? Because women start their hormones start declining early, like in their late 30s, early 40s, and we've in the past have ignored those symptoms and said, you got to wait till your last menstrual period and you're completely into menopause to even consider hormone replacement. That's kind of how it's been. And now, I mean, I've done it for years, but now I see that there's a lot more research coming out around how can we optimize hormones earlier. And hormone replacement, it's always been one of my favorite things to do because it's so powerful and so effective in a lot of ways, and it changes people's lives.
Yes.
So that's something I'm always looking at, how to optimally replace hormones. Because right now they're just, doing static dosing, like here's your hormone, same dose every single day. And there's some interesting research coming around out around cycling progesterone versus taking it every night, and how can we optimize the hormone levels for the particular person versus a one size fits all.
Got it.
So,
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually was having dinner with a friend the other night, and I don't know how we got on the subject, but she was like, she mentioned that she cannot get a doctor to help her with her hormones because she's only 40. And they're like, there's nothing we can do for you. And she's like, but I've got like brain fog. I've got serious issues that I know are hormone related.
yeah,
And so then I told her, you need to go to a functional medicine doctor because that's the answer that you're going to get
yeah,
by most traditional medicine, just because that's the protocol, right? You're 40, you're not in menopause yet. And
right,
so they're really not able to, or they're not open or willing to help in that situation, or they're just not knowledgeable enough to help. I'd rather say that because it's
yeah.
not that
They're
they
just
don't
not.
want to help. They
They're
do
very
want to help, but they don't have the experience that you have or the knowledge or the education around the perimenopausal women. And I think that's a lot of women that are really struggling
Mm.
because they're not physicians are telling them that there's nothing that they can do for them.
Right. Or they'll start having a lot more PMS, and all kinds of hormonal symptoms. And then I had a patient the other day, her doctor told her, you should just take an antidepressant. And she's never had depression her whole life. And it's clearly a hormonal issue. And so
Right.
we improved and addressed the issue, and now she's fine. So she
Great.
didn't have to go on an antidepressant.
There you go.
Um,
So that's
so that's
that's
fun.
definitely go ahead.
I've gone to a bunch of conferences on longevity, obviously, improving, just not even just like living longer, but the health span, right? Like the
Yes.
how long we're healthy for. And so that's been interesting, right? It kind of I feel like, people are looking into things like rapamycin. I don't know if you're familiar with
No. No.
rapamycin. Oh, rapamycin is a medication that was incidentally found to increase longevity in animal studies.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like I don't believe it was mice or rat studies, they lived, I think it was 30% longer.
Okay.
And then they did a study in dogs up in Washington, and that's an ongoing study. But all these kind of biohackers are using rapamycin to potentially prolong life. But there's some interesting research coming out around rapamycin and brain health. I'm
Okay.
also very interested in optimizing brain health and preventing dementia because it runs in my family.
Okay.
So that there's some interesting research around how that can improve brain health as well. So
I love
just
that.
they're looking at different compounds that can improve longevity, DNA repair. Like there's some animal studies showing that rapamycin decreases risk of cancer. So it's just one example. It's kind of interesting that. So I'm following that research.
Okay.
Um,
Very cool. I love
Yeah, and
that.
then an interesting I wanted to mention, at this last conference I went to, they're looking at using, the hormone AMH to prolong ovarian life. So,
Oh,
to prolong ovarian function, I should say.
okay.
So I thought that was really fascinating because AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, is a hormone that we don't really understand completely, but it does seem to prolong ovarian function. So they're doing studies right now, and how can we use that to actually, again, be able to prolong ovarian function so people can have kids later on, and it can be used as a birth control that might have that benefit at the same time.
Oh, wow. That's super cool.
So that I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes, that's one of the things I love, about you guys and gals is that what I found is the functional integrative doctors are really, really, they love educating themselves. They love going to conferences. They
Mhm.
love knowing about the new and the latest, greatest research, and that's really one of the benefits to the patient as well, right? Is that
Yeah.
you're always at the cutting edge of what's new and what's cool. So
Yeah,
that's
I tend to be kind of an early adopter of things, or I'll see people who haven't found answers, and I'll do research and then find something that can help them, right?
yeah,
Versus sitting around waiting for another 20 years.
right.
Just
Some of us don't have that long to wait.
right? You kinda weigh the benefits versus the risk. Obviously, we try to,
Of course,
research based and try to not
of
take
course,
any unnecessary risks.
sure.
So and then, peptides I think are exploding, and they've been around for a long time. Obviously, GLP-1s are very popular
Yes.
for weight
Oh,
loss.
yes.
But there's some studies on GLP-1s, showing decreased Parkinson's, and also they're looking at it for dementia and brain health. So I thought that was really interesting, and how can we utilize those in other ways?
Very
Um,
cool.
and then of course there's a million other peptides, and
Yes.
I'm also researching them and starting to utilize some of them.
Oh, good for
So
you.
yeah.
So, if there was one message that you want listeners to take away about functional and integrative medicine, what would it be?
I would just say, keep an open mind, educate yourself, and just if you do want to go into that field, to just start making small changes. It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul of your practice. Just like you said, your gynecologist friend just started incorporating it, even within insurance. Uh,
Mhm.
just educating yourself. I mean, it's actually kind of fun, and really trying to get to the root cause and not just the band aid approach. It just makes such a big difference, and that's what people are looking for.
They
So.
are. That's awesome. And what is the best way for people to follow you, reach you? Physicians want to, have a reach
Yeah.
out to you and just have a chat. What would be your recommendation?
I'm not big on social media yet, maybe in the future, but my website, draustin.com. So it's DOCTOR, Austin, AUSTIN.com. That's a good place to reach me.
Perfect.
Uh,
Yeah, that's all they need to know.
I would just go from there.
draustin.com. Easy
Yeah.
enough.
Yes. Please do.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy clinic today to, talk to us and share your experience and your knowledge. And you're one of the early adopters, so I think you are one of the few that has been not. You're not only an MD, but you've been practicing this for many, many years. So, if you docs have any questions, give Dr. Austin a call and reach out to her on her website. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Austin.
Yeah.